Hello, everybody. Welcome into the Fantasy Pros Football Podcast. I'm Ryan Wormeli, joined on this Tuesday morning by Andrew Erickson and by Chris Welsh. Fellas, we are going into week 16. It is the semifinals in a lot of fantasy leagues. It's the finals in some of our leagues that started a week early for some unknown reason. Thank you again, Mayor. But yeah, we are in the thick of it. Not a lot of people are still alive in their leagues, and we are chugging right along here to hopefully help out those who are still alive and for whom this is the most important weeks of the season because it's the actual championship rounds. Erickson, we were just talking a little bit before the show about do you or do you not care or set your lineups or even look when you're in the toilet bowl?
I do not. I have other things to be concerned about as opposed to setting my lineup. Do I come in 12th place versus 11th place versus 10th place? It doesn't matter to me. I need all my focus on the teams that are in the running to win a championship. That's our goal, to win the championship, not to help you win your toilet bowl. I think in Dynasty, it's a little bit different. You want to maintain integrity, seeding purposes. I think it's best to put up your best lineup or your best worst starting lineup within the bylaws of your league. But besides that, yeah, I'm not paying attention to leagues I have been long gone for multiple weeks ago.
Well, and it's not even every dynasty league because some leagues it's just like if you're out of the playoffs, it's just wherever you were in the regular season and those rounds don't even matter. So yeah, even in that scenario, like I am with you. I have never once cared about a toilet bowl. I know some people who do. Like I have some more casual fantasy players in my life that will like ask me for advice. I'm like, oh, cool, you made the playoffs. They're like, well, no, I'm in the consolation bracket, but I really want to win like the 9th place game. I'm like, why?
If anything in the consolation bracket, I just do really wild things. Like I play really loose and I just like, hey, like this guy did something one time, throw him in.
It's like start Kyle Pitts.
Yeah,
you're like, hey, Kyle Pitts is a good start.
Dude, led the team in targets, man.
Yeah, that's the only scenario where you can start Kyle Pitts is the consolation bracket.
He's a lot of those.
How about you?
Same he's in consolation.
Yeah. You know those stats they put out there. They're like, if you have Jamar Chase, you have a 51.5% chance to make. You have a 99.9% chance if you have Kyle Pitts to be in the toilet bowl. That's a guarantee.
I'm sure there are players who I can't think of a good example off the top of my head right now, but like who were drafted really highly in previous years, who were really bad, and so you probably didn't make the playoffs, but then were really good in December. So you could get a stat of like players that were on a very high percentage of toilet bowl champions.
Yeah, probably. No, toilet bowls are flushed down for me. I flush those. I do not care. We were talking about one of these Fantasy Pros content leagues that we do. Me and Erickson, we're the epitome of toilet bowls. And I was like, did I make the playoffs? And I looked, I'm like, oh no, I advanced in the toilet bowl. I don't care. I do not care. If anything, it's cathartic because it opens up my world to put more energy into the teams that mean something now. So yeah, I as sick as it is, because you don't want it, but like guys like, not everybody out there plays like 10 or 12 leagues or whatever. Guys like us that'll play like multiple industry and maybe you got some high stakes and then some fun. And all of a sudden you have like 12 or 15 leagues. You want to win everything. But when it gets chopped down to like 8, you're like, this is pretty sweet. Maybe
kind of refreshing.
This is kind of nice. This is nice that I only have to look at 8.
My favorite is when I'm done with teams on a specific platform. So like whether it's like ESPN, Sleeper, Yahoo, like NFC, wherever you're playing, when I can no longer pull up that site in particular, it is kind of refreshing.
Yeah, once I can delete the ESPN app.
Sleep well, sweet prince. Good night. We're never going to look at you again.
Well, we're still here to help folks as best we can who are still alive in a handful of leagues. Let's talk a little bit about Monday Night Football, and I do mean a little because there was really nothing going on in these games. Super boring, quite frankly.
I had a great time. I very much enjoyed those games. They were great games for me.
Were they lucrative for you? Is that why?
They were very lucrative. As Erickson knows, I hit him up. Erickson is the first touchdown betting king. He loves to do it. I don't. I got waxed over the weekend, one of my worst betting weekends. So I put together a little first touchdown parlay and smashed. So a little 5,500 to 1 makes Welsh feel a little bit better. So I thoroughly enjoyed. Also,
wait.
Yeah,
5,500 to 1 or
55 to 1
or 55.
50,
yeah,
okay.
It was 50, plus like 5,500. That would have been a lot.
Island.
Why are you showing up to work today if you hit a 5,500 to 1?
Yeah, no, sorry. I was thinking of the plus 5,500.
That's like The Office. Like if anybody gives you 10,000 to 1 odds, you take it. If John Cougar Mellencamp ever wins an Oscar,
but Drake London scoring that touchdown, that sealed the deal, made it really nice, and then there was no other offense. But to the point, I enjoyed that. helped very little fantasy owners this weekend between both those garbage games.
The fact that the Falcons didn't score at all made no sense because it seemed like every single time they started a drive, it was in Raiders territory. It made no sense because I'm looking at the bot. I'm like, they're in Raiders territory again. And then it was field goals, missed field goals, couldn't convert anything. And I don't even know if they got into the red zone, to be quite honest, because Drake London scored from outside the red zone. So
his is a 30
yeah,
yard.
it was
Well, let's start with that Falcons Raiders game. Obviously, Falcons win 15-9. Bijan Robinson, 22 carries, 125 yards, no touchdown, but he was very good. Kyle Pitts technically led this team in targets with 4. He had 4 targets. Drake London had 3. Ray McLeod had 3. Bijan had 2. Mooney had 1.
had not goose egged.
0. Nothing for Mooney. What happened?
I mean, Cousins is cooked. That's not going on.
They didn't throw. They're afraid to throw the ball. I mean,
they can't throw it.
Their pass rate over expectation was minus 21%. That is very, very low.
Was this also the worst case scenario that could have happened? Because I think a lot of people were like, if the Falcons perform poorly against the Raiders, we'll finally see Michael Penix. But they went out and won. So this is like the worst case scenario.
It would have been nice if they lost and we got Penix.
We're going to get another week of Kirk Cousins. They're not going to make that move at this point of the season, especially after winning that. So it's kind of the worst case scenario. I would have liked to see Penix because Cousins is doing nothing for the rest of this offense. You want to know why London had that touchdown? I'm not going to rewatch that play. I was obviously locked into him. He absolutely ate that corner up with a little hitch and go, just whoop, whoop. And that corner just laid on the ground and he was wide open. That's what Cousins can do. Cousins isn't making any other great plays. Would have loved to see what Penix could have done for the rest of the wide receivers, tight end, any of the offense, but we're not going to get it now.
Yeah, I agree. I really was hoping for a scenario where we would see Penix instead of Cousins. On the Raiders side, I mean, they're stuck with their bad quarterback, obviously Desmond Ridder. Not very good. Jacoby Myers had 5 catches for 59 yards. That basically all came late. Our pal Mike Mayer was like tweeting throughout the game how he desperately needed more from Myers and just wasn't getting any targets, or when he was, they were getting called back on penalty. Abdullah had 7 catches on 7 targets, 58 yards, and a touchdown. Sincere McCormick obviously gets hurt in this game, hurting a lot of managers. And then Brock Bowers, 6 targets, 3 catches, 35 yards. Not a good game from him. I mean, the quarterback situation is just like really hampering everybody. Any fantasy takeaway here, Erickson, on the Raiders side of things?
Well, it's possible Aiden O'Connell might come back because his injury wasn't as bad as they thought it was going to be. It's not like he's like on injured reserve. So there's still a hope that he could come back and kind of salvage what's left of like Jacoby Myers and Brock Bowers, because obviously this is what's going to be like reality more often than not, even though their schedule, I mean, it's so good, right? Jaguars and Saints next 2 weeks. I mean, the Jaguars are the best matchup for tight ends, right? Brock Bowers should be, I mean, he should be the number 1 ranked tight end, but it's hard to put him there with Desmond Ridder as quarterback. If we get O'Connell back, then you're feeling great about plugging Myers back into your lineups. And obviously you got to start Bowers pretty much no matter what. For the running backs, Madison, I think that he's probably going to be the guy that they look for in early downs. McCormick's going to be missing the rest of the season, look like, with his ankle injury, and good matchups, Jaguars and Saints. So I think you have to go back to Alexander Madison. Again, tread lightly, though, because his first carry of this game, he fumbled. And then he had to go back in because McCormick got hurt. So what's his workload leash really like? Again, tread lightly with Raiders running backs.
Welsh, do we need to start Brock Bowers no matter what? Because 3 of the last 4 games, he has under 7 points in half PPR. And like at a certain point, you do just have to look at the offensive environment and say this isn't tenable, or is that overthinking it? And is he truly like you just can't think about any other downside and you have to start him?
Yeah, I think it's overthinking it. I get the logic of it. If Aiden O'Connell comes back, that's a plus. You know, we
Sure.
kind of know what he's going to be able to do with Bowers. But no, I don't think you can take him out. We were jokingly talking about like incentive season is coming. There's just a lot of records that are on the line as well. He is the force of this offense. They've got to pass more. I think at the end of the year, you already see so many more teams, 4th and 4, go for it. On our own 40, go for it. Like, I think they need to get that ball in the air quite a bit more. Maybe losing Sincere is going to take the ball off the ground even a tiny bit more as well. He's just a guy throw between the guards. All of that is just like a little just conversation around just the obvious point of, you start Brock Bowers. You don't think about it. Unless you play in a league where you have Brock Bowers and TreyMcBride, it's just not a question. You're not going to know. There's no viable way that you're going to come and be like, should I start Cade Otton or him? No, there's just no tight end I could do outside of, the core, and he belongs in the core. So you got to go down with the ship. I hate to say it. We're not getting cute. Got to go with Brock Bowers.
In the other game in this doubleheader, Vikings 30, Bears 12. Again, not a lot that really stands out as a major surprise. At least that stands out to me. DeAndre Swift, 19 for 79. Keenan Allen did have 13 targets. He caught 6 of them for 82 yards and a touchdown. DJ Moore caught all 8 targets, just 46 yards though. So very small, yards per catch there. Rome Odunze caught just 2 of 7 targets, 39 yards. On the Viking side, Aaron Jones, 18 for 86 and a touchdown. Justin Jefferson, 7 for 73 and a touchdown. Jordan Addison had 9 targets, caught 7 for 63 yards. Very much like Erickson, a game you just kind of everybody did what you expected, right?
Yeah, I mean, you're starting the same guys. It's kind of Bears wide receiver roulette. Which Bears receiver is going to score the touchdown. It seems like Allen is always the one that they prefer to use in the red zone the most. He has the most touchdowns since Thomas Brown took over. And he's got another good matchup against the slot Detroit Lions defense that's really banged up. So Bears, I think that Odunze is probably the one that you can't start just because he's been the most inconsistent. Allen has at least been getting targets, even if it takes a lot of targets for him to get there. He does get touchdown equity. DJ Moore, the bubble screen king. He gets PPR. He's getting there as well. And they're just throwing the ball a ton. So it's working enough. And again, the Detroit Lions, we've seen this matchup already, and their defense is really banged up. So you should be able to trust some of these. DJ Moore, Keenan Allen, I think is like wide receiver 3s, and Odunze, I think you got to leave on the bench.
Welsh, any fantasy takeaways from this matchup, or can we move on?
Yeah, I mean, but they can mostly move on. Just real quick, the two things, DJ Moore out of the backfield had 3 carries, just straight up using him as a running back. Would be interested if we see a little bit more of that. That's a good positive. That's the old when Debo, was a good player type of move. And then TJ Hawkinson, just, that he's kind of in that circle of trust. I almost was going to be like, could you Hawkinson to a Bowers? No, you're still going to go Bowers without thinking about it. But, Hawkinson had 7 targets. Really like to see that. This is a good matchup in general for him. But Hawkinson is in that trustworthy range. But other than that, it was a standard Monday weird set of games. Why do we have 2 of them?
I was going to say not that standard because we had the doubleheader.
Why were there 2?
I don't know why.
Because they didn't want everyone to watch the Raiders and Falcons.
I mean, they didn't do any better. It was just like all right, 1 awful game, or let's put 2 awful games and get people excited. I don't know the logic.
Yeah, I'm with you there, Welsh. Let's look at how we did in week 15 for Erickson. The Chiefs won. The Browns did not cover. Worthy did have a touchdown, which he predicted.
Rushing touchdown, though.
It was rushing. I wasn't going to call you out for it. But, I don't know if Pat's Cardinals counted for you as a shootout. Did that warrant?
I don't know.
You said it was going to be a shootout, and then it was 30-17. Is that?
No, so technically the over hit then.
The over hit, but you didn't say the over. You said it's a shootout, so that's I didn't know.
I mean, shootout implies that it's going to go over the projected total. So 47 points would cash you over.
You predicted that McBride would catch a touchdown. He obviously did not. The Bucks, this is your best call, more than covered in a blowout of the Chargers.
Oh, yeah.
And of course, the Bills-Lions game screamed past the over. Somehow, despite them going over, your Amari Cooper going off prediction did not pan out.
The most Amari Cooper of Amari Cooper performances.
Wild. He did go off the field. He didn't do anything. I was legit like, is he around? Like there was nothing. Didn't he show up like at the end of the game? I don't even know.
I'm so ready because last year I think it was week 16 was his big 50-point game.
Oh yeah, no, he's gonna go nuke this week.
So this year or this
on
week
everyone's benches.
Go off. Last one for Erickson. The Panthers did not win as favorites, nor did Xavier Legette have a big game. For Welsh, Kadri Miller finished 1 touch shy of your double-digit prediction. He did not have a touchdown. Brian Thomas Jr. did not catch a 50-yard touchdown, but he might as well have, given how much production he gave us. That was a philosophically, fundamentally correct, spiritually correct prediction, even if he didn't get the 50-yard touchdown. Bo Nix did not pass for 250 yards. He didn't really need to do much. Defense did a lot of the heavy lifting in that game. He did throw for 3 touchdowns, though. Puka and Jennings, boy, did they not combine for 250 yards and 2 touchdowns in that game. Literally nobody had big games on Thursday. Puka was okay, but
I wish I would have said Debo and Cooper Kupp just to
make it even more.
Just to be like hilarious. Completely wrong. Just the total fade like this last one.
Last one, Chuba Hubbard did not have a big game against Dallas. He was not RB5 on the week as you predicted. So we will try to do better this week. I think we were better in week 14 than we were in week 15. We will come back here with a vengeance, though, for our week 16 predictions show. Erickson, kick us off with your prediction number 5.
Yeah, I'm looking to Thursday Night Football rookie wide receiver Troy Franklin. He's finally going to catch a deep pass from Bo Nix, who he famously, although it doesn't seem like it, they did play together at college at Oregon, even though seems like there's no on-field chemistry between these two guys. Troy Franklin, despite playing a very limited role this season, ranks 12th in the NFL in deep targets. I had to double check this stat because it doesn't seem real, but he actually has the second highest deep ball target rate in the NFL at 39%, second to only Alec Pierce. So anytime Franklin is seeing a target, more often than not, it's 20 yards down the field. And why I like this to be the spot where it ends up happening for him is the Chargers defense. How do you exploit them with the deep ball? 30th in EPA per target on deep targets. We just saw, what did Mike Evans do to them last week? Just absolutely went off with deep touchdown passes from a quarterback, Baker Mayfield, that really hasn't been attacking the ball downfield. So that's how I think Sean Payton's going to dial up a pass game for Bo Nix, attacking this Chargers weakness down the field. Troy Franklin's been using that role. And the last time we saw these teams play earlier in the season in week 6, Troy Franklin ran the most routes he's ever run in any game. He also caught a deep ball and scored a touchdown. So, yes, Troy Franklin, you're probably not going to be starting him in any fantasy leagues, but for those that are playing in dynasty leagues, maybe some shallower leagues, like, don't forget about this guy. Again, 4th-round pick, fell in the draft, but I think that we could see a strong finish from Troy Franklin here as the Denver Broncos kind of round out the season, head into the playoffs. So I like Troy Franklin here on Thursday Night Football to catch a deep pass from Bo Nix, and I think he's going to score a touchdown as well.
Yeah, obviously you're not making the pitch to start him in most leagues, but I am curious. I'm trying to pull it up now to see where he's actually even ranked. He's wide receiver 94. That's in our that's in our staff rankings.
Wide receiver. I keep scrolling.
I really was. I was like, he's wide receiver 94.
I'm gonna be ahead of ECR.
So yeah, we'll see where
that should have been your prediction. Who will beat ECR?
Yeah, he'll beat ECR. Welsh, what do you think about this one? I mean, obviously Erickson kind of alluded to the fact that it hasn't really looked like they played together in college, even though we know they did. The connection hasn't quite been there. You think we see them pop off here on Thursday Night Football?
Yeah, I had a thing earlier this year about like betting Troy Franklin that he was going to get in for a touchdown. Like the connection is there. The problem is they run, and I've said this multiple times, the Broncos run similar to what the Packers do. They have like these rotational, outside of Cortland Sutton, they have these rotational wide receiver sets. So it's like, little Jordan Humphrey, and then it's Marvin Mims, and then in comes Franklin, and in comes Vele. Like Vele doesn't play early downs, but he is the always third down wide receiver. I personally hate wide receiver rotations. Packers stop it. Broncos stop it. Put your best players out there. How about you just every single week give me Vele, Franklin, and Sutton, and don't bother me with a little Jordan Humphrey and nonsense like that. So from that perspective in the rotations, I don't love it. But what I do love, of course, is that the big play's an option. I mean, that's all that he does. They don't throw little, they don't try to get him the ball. Like Marvin Mims, they've moved into, hey, let's do a little screen pass, a little end around, let's get the ball in his hands. They don't do that with Franklin. There's not an 8-yard out and then go. No, it's just 25-yard deep go, big bomb. So if he catches a ball, it's probably happening. And, the positive regression of actually scoring a touchdown at some point with his former teammate makes a lot of sense. I'm down with this call. I think the opportunities are fewer than what you would get out of some other players, but I kind of have a similar one in my next one as well for a player that plays rotationally as well.
Yeah, why don't you take us there? Who you got for your prediction number 5, Welsh?
So I wish I would have looked at the stat that Erickson looked at, because I would wonder where Keon Coleman also ranks on those deep plays as far as average, because that has been something Keon Coleman has done a ton of. What he hasn't done a ton of is games. He has not played in a bunch of games, and he just recently got back. He has only 23 catches on this season. But as far as the big play that he is, 3 have gone for 49 or higher in 10 games played. In 10 games, only 3 games has he had a reception under 24 yards. So that's also a longest reception play for you guys there. That Keon Coleman had that big bomb this weekend right near the red zone. He's a target that Josh Allen likes, but again, it is rotational with quite a few players. But when they go deep, he's looking at Keon Coleman, and Keon Coleman makes big plays by virtue of what I've said. So my prediction this week, it's going to be similar to the Brian Thomas. We're going to have a 50-yard touchdown. So we're going to just play it a little bit bold. He's going to have another long reception. So his longest reception prop kind of seems pretty nice. But the play here is going to be, and by the way, Keon Coleman, before he got hurt, he was getting a couple games where I think he had 4 catches straight, 6 targets. He was getting a little bit more mass there. In a game where I think they're going to be throwing a little bit more, I like betting on Keon Coleman getting more involved. He's a big playmaker, and we're going to go 50-yard touchdown for the play.
What do you think about this one, Erickson?
Yeah, so I just looked up Keon Coleman. So he leads the Bills in deep targets with 10 this year. So, yeah, I mean, look, Christian Gonzalez is the only good player on the Patriots defense, and I don't think
Yank.
that he's going to
Yeah.
shadow Keon Coleman in any way. I think that he'll be on him a little bit, but they're going to mix it up because the Bills, again, another team that does like kind of rotate their receivers a little bit. So when Gonzalez is lined up on Cooper, well, you could see Keon Coleman taking advantage of some of these other cornerbacks for the Patriots. So I think that from a don't know what the volume is going to be like for Keon Coleman, but again, 50-yard touchdown only takes one, like we saw last week, for him to get loose, and he's been a favorite of Josh Allen's, especially in the red zone. So I think that he's going to get at least a couple opportunities to catch a long ball here.
There are only 19 players in the NFL who have multiple 50-yard catches this season. Keon Coleman's one of them. So
I thought you were about to be like, name the other 18. Like, oh no, I don't know.
Well, we kind of did that last week
I
when we were
know.
talking about Brian Thomas Jr. and it was like, oh, there's only 4 players that have 4 of them, and so that was a little easier. I can't make you name 19. I'll say the maybe most surprising one on here, Trey Tucker. MVS is on there.
I was about to say, if you would have
said.
said name one person for points, I would have said Marquez Valdez-Scantling.
Yeah, Alec Pierce would have surprised me before. He's got 3 of them.
No, that's all he does.
Yeah, that's all.
Trey Tucker is surprising though.
Yeah, for sure. Erickson. So, well, let me ask you this: where do you guys think Keon Coleman should be ranked? Because unlike Troy Franklin, like you could justify if you're in a pinch, like maybe needing to start Coleman. Unlike Franklin, what range do you think he should be ranked in?
I would say like in the late 40s, probably something like that. Like top 36 would represent a wide receiver 3. He's probably the fringe of like, this is a flex and this is right outside of flex. And it might be kind of dependent on what you're looking for. What do you think about that, Erickson?
I think that's right. Just the Bills, it's tough because they don't have like this consolidated target share, right?
Yeah.
It's really like Shakir that like gets his as the main underneath option. And it's one of these problems we kind of run into last week, right? With the Ravens off. It's like we knew they were going to score a ton of points. And it's like we all assumed it's going to be Derrick Henry. And it just wasn't Derrick Henry. And it was these other guys that were popping off. So that's kind of how it's going to be like with the Bills. Like you got to start the guys that we feel the best about: Allen, Cook, Shakir. And then one of these other guys, whether it's Kincaid, whether it's Cooper, whether it's Coleman, like one of these guys is going to hit. And I think that when you're looking at playoffs, you need upside. Well, one of these ancillary pieces is going to hit big. And I think that it's worth it ranking Keon Coleman as a back end wide receiver 3 or flex play where you realize what the upside is. And that's obviously why Welsh is talking about. Because again, it would not surprise me if Cooper is the one that got his 50-yard touchdown.
Sure.
Like, that's just how fantasy football works. So,
you know what you and I should do? We should do a Troy Franklin, Keon Coleman touchdown parlay this week.
Well, Welsh is addicted. He hits one Monday night.
Well, that was first touchdowns, but
Yeah.
I want like this is a
touchdowns.
Welsh X Erickson little touchdown parlay of just 2 of the grossest wide receivers of all time.
You guys are well ahead of consensus for the record. It's early in the week still. Coleman is wide receiver 56 in consensus. So you guys
he's going to be ranked ahead of Cooper
as a value.
I would say that. I think he should be ranked ahead of Cooper.
He plays, so yeah, he should.
Guys, low testosterone affects about 30% of adult men in America. Are you feeling the drag of fatigue, noticing a dip in muscle mass, or sensing a slump in libido? If so, it's time to get your testosterone levels tested. If you have low T, Kysotrex is an FDA-approved pill that's changing the game in testosterone replacement therapy. In fact, Kysotrex restored testosterone levels in nearly 9 out of 10 clinical study participants, and its unique formulation bypasses the liver to avoid liver damage. It's time to break free from injections, pellets, and gels. Choose Kysotrex and take a step toward being the hero of your life again. To see if you qualify, visit Kysotrex.com and take the low T quiz today. That's KYZATREX.com. By prescription only, Kysotrex is a controlled substance and can be a target of abuse. Kysotrex is not for use in pregnant women or men with prostate or breast cancer. Safety and efficacy in those younger than 18 is not known. Tell your doctor about all medical conditions and medications. Serious side effects could include increased blood pressure, worsening prostate symptoms, increased risk of prostate cancer, blood clots in the legs or lungs, decreased sperm count, liver problems, enlarged or painful breasts, and breathing problems while you sleep. Common side effects include swelling of the ankles, feet, or body, increased red blood cell count, an increase in prostate-specific antigen or PSA levels. PSA is a test used to detect prostate cancer. Report these symptoms to your doctor. Call your doctor to learn more about Kysotrex. For questions or more information, visit www.kysotrex.com or call 1-833-949-5040. All right, Erickson, what is your number 4 prediction for the week?
Trey McBride's going to score a touchdown this week. So
Had to go back to the well.
Yeah, I'm going back to the well again. I think I mentioned this last week where I was fully open to the idea I could have been a week early on Trey McBride. It's totally fine. And I mean, he came 1 yard short of scoring a touchdown against the Patriots. They gave him a shovel pass. The team knows that Trey McBride hasn't scored a touchdown. They are very aware. They told the broadcasters all about it. They have all the next gen stats. Now McBride has officially broken the record. Maybe they wanted to get him the record first. He officially now has the most receptions and most yards in a season without a receiving touchdown. So he's got
Congratulations.
He's got it in the bag.
What an honor.
So now he and I would argue even this week he has a better matchup to score because what team has allowed the most touchdowns at tight ends? It's the Carolina Panthers. And back in my mind, I remember there was a season with Joe Mixon where he could not score touchdowns. He could not find the end zone. And then he played the Panthers and he scored 5 touchdowns in one game. Like all the regression just hit at one point. And I think that's in play here. So,
5 touchdowns?
5 touchdowns is probably aggressive.
A couple weeks ago, you talked a big game about betting him to score 3 touchdowns this week if he didn't have a touchdown.
I would kind of point out, I rode that touchdown parlay, by the way, or not parlay, but the Trey McBride anytime touchdown. I bet it this weekend for you. And then we should point out the Trey McBride's made prop that ended up cashing because it was 9 catches.
It was the smartest hedge I could have made.
I just want you to come together with what you said a couple weeks ago. You said 3 touchdowns. So now make it 5. That's all that we're saying here. It's pretty reasonable.
Has a tight end ever caught 5 touchdowns in a game? I don't know if that's ever. I mean, a running back is different, but no. I mean, I'm gonna be on the Trey McBride touchdowns again, 1, 2, 3, because again, I wouldn't be able to live with myself if I bet it last week and then he does it a week later, right? That would be even worse. So I will be sprinkling back onto it. This will be the last week I go back to it because again, the Panthers. Again, I liked the matchup last week. I like the matchup even more this week. And look, they're calling shovel passes for Trey McBride at the 1 yard line. So clearly the team wants to get him in the end zone. And I think that even if it's not 3, I think he does finally score this week. So I'm going back to the well here with Trey McBride touchdown.
I don't think he has any odds set yet on anytime touchdown or anything like that. But is there like a range that you expect it to be? Like you think it's going to be plus what?
It better be like plus 125. I mean, that's not that great because he hasn't scored all year. But as long as
no, it should be like plus 175 because he hasn't scored, but it'll be like 120 because everybody thinks he's going to score. That's how it's going to go.
Jump on those lines early, folks.
Yeah. I'm betting it. Blindly. I won't even look. Just automatic. I will bet it. I'm rolling with Erickson on this one. I'm a believer.
Erickson is going back to the well. I am going back to the Welsh for his next prediction. What do you got for us?
All right. Not as exciting. I'm going with Jerome Ford. Nick Chubb is out. Another injury is going to take him out for the season. So it's Jerome Ford's season. It's at least startable at this point. So we are going to go with playing around with like battling this not being like a bold prediction versus like what my expectation is. My expectation is Jerome Ford is going to have a good run here being the guy. And he is actually someone that could have been floating around in waivers for people this week, and getting him in at least a flex spot, I think, is a play. My prediction is 80 plus yards and a touchdown this week, which he did last week. He was able to put together, went over 104 with the score. He's going up against Cincinnati over the last month. They have given up the most fantasy points to running backs and the most receiving yards to running backs as well. Ford is averaging 5.2 per carry. You know that he's just kind of a big play guy in general. I think they are going to feed the rock because DTR, if he is your quarterback for the week, you're not doing the Jameis Winston, close your eyes and throw it 50 yards. No, you are going to have to do short line stuff. And I think that's going to exist around Jerome Ford playing outside tackles, and it's going to be short passes. I think he's going to get really good volume. It's a really great matchup. Jerome Ford, I guess, probably going to hug like running back 2-ish range, like top 24 RB. I think he's a smash flex though. So Jerome Ford having a very solid fantasy, 80 plus with a touchdown is the prediction.
What do you think, Erickson? Where do you have him ranked?
I haven't done my week 16 rankings yet. So
he's RB24 in early ECR.
There you go.
I think that's fine. I think it's a good matchup against Cincinnati Bengals. He's been explosive this year. The only concern is if they just take him out and they put Deontay Foreman in at the goal line. Like that's the only concern with touchdowns. But besides that, I think 80 yards, especially yards from scrimmage, because he is used as a receiver too. And if we get Jameis, like yes, please. Like, we need Jameis Winston for our Cleveland Browns, please.
The other ones, yeah.
Welsh, do you think that sounds about right for the ranking, RB24?
Yeah, I'm actually surprised if he's already sitting there that people are already in there. I mean, obviously, like I'm saying, like, hey, the prediction is top 24. If he's also sitting 24 already, like, okay, then people are in on that. Based on the predictive like stats, like maybe he's going to beat it inside the top 20, but I think that's the appropriate range. And there's going to be some tough decisions. I mean, obviously there's a couple backs that came off, like Dave Montgomery, that's off your rank list now. Jerome Ford, though, ironically, is going to rank higher than Nick Chubb is probably ranked the entire season, just because he's a big explosive play guy and we should see more touches out of him. So yeah, I think 24 to 20 is the appropriate range, and it's just a really good matchup for him to, regardless of the quarterback. I just think DTR is actually going to speak to him a little bit more than Jameis. Are they going to go back to Jameis? Can they go back to Jameis after that?
I don't know.
Will they?
I mean,
what do you think, Erickson?
I mean, a week before they're like, we got to sign this guy to be our starter, right? It's just like you can't you can't take the good Jameis and not accept the bad Jameis too. Like,
but they didn't
back.
accept. They benched him. They said, "Oh, this bad Jameis is too much now." He threw
I hope they go back to him. I don't know if they will.
I don't know. I mean, this is the reason why he's a backup, because of like games like this. And again, like the highs are great, but then like you got to take the lowest when they come, and we saw it last week. So.
It's the most wonderful time of the year for getting in on all of the hoops, football, and hockey action at DraftKings Sportsbook. In the season of giving, we're being gifted college football and basketball, pro football and basketball, and pro hockey too, almost 24/7. So many games every day, so many opportunities to place your first bet. Try betting on something simple like picking a team to win. Go to the DraftKings Sportsbook app and place your bet. A couple of games I'm keeping an eye on this week come on Saturday with that doubleheader. The Texans are laying 2.5 points in Kansas City. That's obviously related to Patrick Mahomes' health, so definitely want to stay up to date there with how that line moves. Then the Ravens are laying 6 points at home against the Steelers. That line actually opened at 6.5, I think. I don't understand it at all, honestly, given Lamar's history against Pittsburgh. We're going to talk more about that later in the episode. Plus 6 points in general is just a huge number for this rivalry. Lines and odds are subject to change, of course. Here's a gift for all new customers. Bet $5 to get $150 in bonus bets if your bet wins. So download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use code FantasyPros. That's code FantasyPros for new customers to get $150 in bonus bets if your bet wins when you bet just $5. Happy holidays from DraftKings. The crown is yours. Erickson, your number 3 prediction, please.
I'm going to go to the Chiefs and Houston Texans game that's being played on Saturday this week, a little bit earlier, because the Chiefs get to play 2 games in 10 days. It's actually 3 games in 11 days if you include what they played last week. I don't think Patrick Mahomes is going to play. That's part of my prediction here. I think it's going to be Carson Wentz under center for the Chiefs, but both his sleeve is going to cover his arm and the 2.5 point spread. So I like Wentz here to help the Chiefs. I think that Andy Reid is going to have them prepared, and I don't know if they're going to come away with the win, though. Like, that's part of the prediction I'm not really sure about. I think they're going to cover because the Houston Texans are one of the worst. Again, we talk about how bad the Chiefs are covering spreads. Texans are like, hold my beer. Like, they are absolutely atrocious, especially when they're favorites and they're on the road in Kansas City. So I think the Chiefs are kind of live here as like underdogs, which seems weird to think about because they may not have Mahomes. At least I don't think they're going to have Mahomes. And my reason for that is you look at the way the Chiefs the rest of their season is, they only have to win 2 of their remaining 3 games to get the number 1 seed, because they have a lead on the Buffalo Bills. Bills obviously have the tiebreaker because they beat them head to head, but technically they can afford to lose 1 game between now and the rest of the season. So in conventional wisdom would suggest, hey, if he's not ready, we just kind of take this game. Okay, if we lose whatever, then we win out and then we get another bye week. So I think that's possibly in play here. Again, the fact that he was labeled week to week so early, that usually suggests, hey, he has to play 2 games in 10 days and you're week to week, you're probably going to miss the first game. So especially because I think that the NFL, again, they're both primetime games, but the NFL would probably want all in their power to make sure Mahomes is healthy on Christmas, right? Then people don't want to wake up presents to Carson Wentz at quarterback. Like, they don't want that, because even if the Saturday game features Wentz, I think that they would prefer that Mahomes is available on Wednesday with Taylor Swift and yada, yada, yada. So that's part of my prediction. And then going into the actual like prop of the game. So I'm looking at Travis Kelce here. Travis Kelce, obviously kind of a disappointment. Again, a fringe kind of top 5 fantasy tight end, kind of ranked every single week. But I think the production's been pretty meh most of the season. Not scoring a lot of touchdowns has kind of been one of his biggest things that he's been lacking. And I don't think that increases with, you take Mahomes out of the lineup and now he's going to finally score touchdowns. Like, I find it that's hard to believe. And I think he's going to go under his receiving yards. So I set his line here at 45.5. Obviously, with the quarterback question marks, we don't have a line on him, but this is a number he's only hitting half the time, like 45.5 yards. Like, that's the bar for Travis Kelce all year with Patrick Mahomes. So given the fact that the matchup is really tough, Houston has been really tough against tight ends this season. I don't know where I'm going to settle ranking Travis Kelce this week. It's tough because I want to make sure I rank him in a spot where I can help people understand, like, hey, you should start this other tight end that you really wouldn't have otherwise thought about over Kelce, but he's definitely going to be ranked lower than he usually would be when he's usually kind of hovering in that top 5 range. So I'm interested to see where I kind of settle on him, but I'm not optimistic that Kelce is going to have a marquee game here in a tough matchup with a downgraded quarterback.
I'm really fascinated to see how these 4 teams approach this Saturday game, because all 4 of them have 3 games in 11 days. They're all playing on short rest and then about to play on even shorter rest, quick turnaround for Wednesday. So I really wonder if we will see. I mean, you can't go into Ravens Steelers and not expect, like, give it your all. It's for the division, really physical. But at the same time, like, you can't also not. You can't forget about the fact that there's another game. The Ravens really, I think, benefited from the fact that they just played the Giants and could kind of rest their players late because there was really no threat in that game, knowing what they have coming up ahead of them. But for all 4 of these teams, this Saturday game right in the middle of this 3-game and 11-day stretch, I'm just really curious to see what the football looks like and what the team's approach is, both mentally and physically, honestly. So I'm really fascinated. I like that you picked one of these games for your prediction. Welsh, what do you expect out of this one?
The only thing you're not thinking of is when Tarantino turned in the script for week 16 is that Patrick Mahomes, who wasn't going to play, is now going to grit it out and have his Jordan game where they can, as I said,
his annual Jordan game, it feels like.
But they're going to be able to, like, I can already see it. They're pulling the clip to Byron Leftwich in college when he had to be carried by his teammates up. They're going to do that with Patrick Mahomes. They're going to 2 offensive linemen are going to carry him. You're forgetting the script about that. But I think the play would be not to play him. I'm actually fascinated by your Kelce one too. I think the line's going to go higher. I don't think it's going to open around 45. I'm going to think it's going to be in the mid 50s, and that's going to be a smash under for you. So I'm not against it or anything like that. Kelce's looked bad. He just looks slow. He doesn't look like the same guy. I do think Wentz could lean on him if he is the starter even a tiny bit more, but in that same token, that might be the benefit of Noah Gray.
Yeah.
So I would just throw this out to
Noah
you.
Gray game, right?
Maybe as you play the unders of Travis Kelce, play the overs of Noah Gray, because you're going to get low lines on Noah Gray, as you always do. It'll probably be in the mid 20s. So Noah Gray play, but just beware of the script for week 16 in Mahomes.
Welsh, what do you got for your number 3 prediction?
All right. We are going to go with the NFL jam, my guy, the ultimate NFL jammer, George Kittle. What would it be if I didn't throw you guys a 49er one, I suppose? But it's George Kittle week. It's not Juwan Jennings. It ain't ever Deebo Samuel week. It's George Kittle, and Kittle's going to slice up the Dolphins. We are going over 100 yards. That would be his third 100-yard game of the season at tight end. The ancillary note also is we are hitting the over in this game. So starting with George Kittle, prior to this past week, the Dolphins had been giving up the most yards to tight ends and receptions to tight ends over a 4-week period, over the 4 weeks. That has tapered down to a little bit more average after taking off the one from a couple weeks back. Not counting the snow game with George Kittle, he has had 3 weeks of at least 6 targets or more. He has gone over 60 yards in those 3 games, and he also torched the Bears in there for a 151. They still think they're vying for something. I don't. I think the Niners are cooked, the bottom of the division. They're embarrassing. They have players quitting on them in the third quarter. Deebo Samuel, it's a disaster. The one person that is not a disaster and is the ultimate team leader is George Kittle. George Kittle is up at every game. Purdy loves Kittle. It's a great matchup on the tight end side. Kittle is going to fry them, and it is going to be Kittle, probably tight end overall number 1 this week. And then just talking about the over here for a second, I do think the 49ers are going to be hyper aggressive on offense. They've had a lot of weird stalled offensive games where they play it slow. I think they're going to be hyper aggressive. And in the same token, I think the Dolphins played so piss poor last week that you've got to just continuously bad secondary with the 49ers. Tyreek Hill is the type of player that will get past the secondary, even though Tua played really bad and made some really bad decisions. I think that combo of guys like Jonnu, guys like Devon Achane and Tyreek Hill, they're going to score. I love the over in this 49ers Dolphins game for sure, but it's going to be about Kittle for me.
What do you think about Kittle, Erickson?
I mean, he's been the only, besides Juwan Jennings, I mean, Kittle's been the model of consistency at the tight end position. So it's been hard to find players like him this year at tight end. Well, at least, Jonas Smith has kind of filled that role. Obviously, Brock Bowers has been a great smash the late round tight end, but of the elite tight ends, Kittle from day one, from the start of the year, like he didn't have a slow start. So he's been really consistent. And I mean, he's looked better than a lot of the other players on the 49ers, especially when he's been healthy. So I think that could be a fun game. Miami's playing at home where they usually play better. The 49ers have a losing record. So that means Miami has a chance to win in this game because they're not playing a team with a winning record. So, I think we're going to get some points here for two teams that have honestly kind of been just overall disappointments from an NFL standard.
And where are you ranking Kittle?
I mean, he might be tight end. I mean, probably tight end too. I mean, behind TreyMcBride, who's going to score a touchdown.
He's going to score 7 touchdowns.
Third in ECR behind McBride and Bowers.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Bowers, I would rank Kittle ahead of if we get Ritter back as quarterback.
Guys, there is no time of year I love more than the holidays. And one of my favorite annual traditions when I head back east to see family and friends is making the time for a trip to College Park to check out my beloved Terps basketball team. It's a great time to catch up with old friends and watch new players together. Game Time is also focused on togetherness this holiday season. When you bring people together at live events, the experience is that much better. Plus, tickets make the perfect gift. Game Time helps with their new feature, Game Time Picks, which filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. Some of my other favorite features include their all-in pricing. I'd rather get coal in my stocking than get hit with a surprise fee at checkout, so I love seeing the total up front. I also love getting a panoramic view from my seat before I buy, so I know exactly what I'm getting or gifting with these tickets. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code FANTASYPROS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code FANTASYPROS for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game Time. Erickson, what's your number 2 prediction?
Jared Goff is the sit of the week at the quarterback position, even after coming off a monster performance against the Buffalo Bills. I actually predicted this back May 16th when the schedule first released. I looked at Jared Goff. I was like, man, this guy plays every single game in a dome. Oh, except week 16. He's playing at Chicago. Sit of the week, week 16 at the Bears. And I'm sticking to it. I have no reason to fade this prediction because we've seen Jared Goff play outdoors in the cold. It's not good. Like he's, as Boggs likes to say, as Joey P likes to say, he's an indoor cat. So I'm going to fade Jared Goff this week. I think that he could potentially be a landmine where you drop him after he scored 5 touchdowns and someone else plays him against you and he bombs. I mean, Sam Darnold threw 5 touchdowns, played the Bears. Wasn't that great from statistically speaking. So I think that this is well in Goff's range of outcomes where he doesn't perform up to what he did, even close to what he did last week, because I think this is a totally different game environment. This is not a shootout environment. This is Soldier Field in December against the Bears. Like, this game could be gross and ugly. So that's ultimately how I think it's going to happen here. I think Detroit's going to win ugly. I don't know. I don't feel good about them laying the points or laying up more than a touchdown on the road against Chicago. So I think that Goff's going to be under his passing yards projection. I put in the show sheet under 200 yards, but I'm seeing here on Prize Picks, his passing yards at 258.5 passing yards. That seems like a lot for an indoor quarterback going on the road, playing outdoors. Just in road games in general this year, he's only hit this number in 50% of his games. He failed to hit over 222 passing yards last time he faced the Bears, and that was at home. And the one time he's played outdoors this year was at Green Bay. He passed for under 150 yards. So I am going to fade Jared Goff this week. I know that I had started him in a team that unfortunately didn't make it, even though I had Jared Goff and I felt really good about starting him last week. But I would be hesitant to start him this week. And I think I would look for alternatives on the waiver wire than rolling with Jared Goff outdoors this week.
258.5. Is that right? That's so high.
I mean, I think he threw for almost 500 yards last week.
It's not high. Yeah, it's not high relative to who he is. It's high
it's high for the context of this game, though. I totally agree with you, Erickson. What do you think, Welsh? Sounds like maybe you're a little more interested in it.
This is the only one I think of all these that I'm not like fully on here. He is an indoor cat. Like we'll give him that. But it's not like he's going into San Francisco last week or the week before. It was a rainy, slushy game, or the Chiefs game, which, by the way, the Chiefs game last week, it was like, oh my gosh, there's rain. There's 20-mile-an-hour winds. I'm looking right now. It's early. It's 28 degrees, super cold, a little bit partly cloudy, and under 10-mile-an-hour wind. That's almost non-effective, except that it's super cold. So I don't know if I'm going to take like any weather conditions of it being December into account. I mean, I do think they'll try to keep it on the ground, but they just lost David Montgomery. So it's just Jahmyr Gibbs. Are you going to run Jahmyr Gibbs 25 times? I don't think so. I think it's, I hope so.
I think they are.
But I think there's going to be a lot of low leverage stuff. So here's the deal. This is a bad defense now. This is just not good anymore. I think it's going to be low stuff to Amon-Ra St. Brown, break tackles, get open. They play every single game. If you watch, I bet a lot of Jameson Williams. Jameson Williams will run that 12-yard little slanty out and then just get extra yards. They're going to run those plays all game long. I'm not saying Jared Goff is going to have what he had last weekend, but it's bad defense. And I do think it will be a lot of Jahmyr Gibbs. I just don't know if he's a smash sit. I could see him having a 2-touchdown game. I could see him going under the passing yard marker as well. I just wonder, if the outdoor conditions maybe potentially make this a little bit more competitive, if that's going to keep him in this entire game. I just don't think he's a smash sit. I definitely don't agree. The only thing I firmly don't agree on is a landmine where, you release him and someone else picks him up and then he just stinks it out. I just don't know if that's going to happen. There's no wind. There's no actual other weather. You lost a running back, more reasons to throw more. Sam Laporta has been more involved. I don't know. I'm probably, from a betting angle, I'm staying away from the Jared Goff. But if you like that under, that spoke to Erickson. I mean, Erickson, you projected it under 200. It's 250. That's a smash in the world of like projection betting for sure. But I'm just not so sold that he's going to demolish. He's not going to do what he did last week, but he still might have a 200 2-touchdown game.
He's only hit the over on 258.5 8 times this season. But that's in playing in these perfect dome conditions basically the entire year. So to me, only 8 times is actually kind of low considering he's played on some amazing offense in these great conditions.
He's had plenty of games where he was set up and the Lions had the highest implied team total on the slate in the dome against a good team, and he was underwhelming in fantasy.
But guys, they have 2 running backs that run for over 1,000 yards. They have 2 of the best running back combo ever. They scored like 74 rushing touchdowns.
Right. And the Bears' run defense is terrible.
And one of them's gone now.
Yeah, so I guess I can disagree. I mean, Gibbs is my RB1 this week. Like,
I agree. Gibbs is a smash.
So I think they're just gonna ride him. Again, when we did this last year, when guys missed time, we thought maybe I can't even remember the running back's name. The next guy up there. They just didn't use. Oh, Craig Reynolds. I'm sorry.
I was about to say I couldn't tell you either.
I apologize, Craig Reynolds and your family.
I was literally just about to look up. I was like, is Craig Reynolds still on the line?
Like they didn't use him. Like I thought last year, like, oh, maybe Craig Reynolds gets like that Montgomery role, and no, they just used more of either Dave Montgomery or Gibbs, whichever guy was healthier. And I think that when coaches and teams are backs against the wall, and they think, oh, in theory, like, yeah, we'll get right. No, it's like, no, they're going to see Gibbs. And I'm like, man, we just got to keep feeding this guy, especially against the Chicago Bears. So,
and if they blow them out, that would be my worry about this is, first bullet is Jahmyr Gibbs rushing touchdown. And then, just awful play, maybe a defensive touchdown. And then Goff throws 1 touchdown. And then all of a sudden, game's out of hand. And it's Craig Reynolds in the third quarter. Jared Goff has 150 yards and the game is over and out of touch. And they don't want to mess around with it. That would be more my worry than Goff implodes outside and has 3 picks and 120 yards.
I think it's everything. I think it's everything going into it. It's a little bit the fact that they're outdoors. It's a little bit the fact that the Bears stink. It's a little bit the fact that they're coming off of a loss and I think could go up big early and then therefore maybe, not throw so much late. I just think it kind of all adds up to, I think 258 is a pretty high number. I'm with Erickson on this one. Let's go. But I think you're right that maybe the specific weather angle is a little bit overblown.
Yeah, I could be fine with betting that under a pound. I'm not even making the case for the passing yards here. I'm making the case that I don't think the weather means anything. And I also think he could still have like a half decent fantasy day while not hitting that over of passing yards. That one, I'm not going to argue with at all.
Welsh, what's your number 2 prediction?
Not trying to argue with anything. Really, just have fun debates here. Bucky Irving. I love me some Bucky. I have not loved me Bucky recently with that injury. 2 weeks ago, I was like, worked out. This past week, I was like, did not work out because he broke that big play. But we are back in the Bucky business, and that is what I'm here to tell you. Bucky Irving, all the way back. We are going to, this is kind of bold prediction, we're going 2 touchdowns for Bucky Irving this week. 1 rushing, 1 receiving. It's a big Bucky week. Dallas is giving up the 3rd most rushing touchdowns to running backs on the year, the 9th most receiving yards to backs on the year. Bucky had 17 touches last week. He's going to get back going with it. From a touchdown perspective, from a yard perspective, they're still going to use Rachaad White, but this team, they live through Bucky Irving. And he had the 17 touches made me feel really good, 15 rushing, and then he had the 2 catches. I think we could get him pushed back over that 20 mark this year. It's a really good matchup against the Dallas Cowboys. They don't give up a ton of receiving touchdowns, but they give up a ridiculous amount of receiving yards, and that's going to be really big in play here for Bucky Irving. So I think really this is a Bucky goes ham, but to have some fun with it and change stuff up, I'm going to say Bucky scores 2 touchdowns.
Erickson, not 1, but 2 touchdowns for Bucky Irving. What do you think about that?
I think it's aggressive because Rachaad White, he's always lingering around the red zone. Rachaad White, I think Rachaad White didn't score any touchdowns in his first 5 games, and then I think he scored in every single week, like his last 9 games played. So Rachaad White is on an absolute tear, but eventually hopefully we'll see he doesn't score touchdowns. Yeah, I think that's the only way you get beat here. Welsh, I think the yardage is going to be good for him with Bucky. It's just a matter of, Rachaad White ended up getting 2 touchdowns and not Bucky because they use him as well in the red zone. But I think it's a safe bet on these Buccaneers running backs regardless.
Love Bucky.
I want to quickly let everybody know that they can help shape the Fantasy Pros Football Podcast by taking our quick, easy survey at fantasypros.com/survey. Share your feedback to help us improve. All it takes is just a minute or 2. Again, that's fantasypros.com/survey. We really appreciate everyone providing feedback throughout the year, but especially this time of year. We want to make sure that we're putting our best foots forward for you in the future. So hopefully everybody takes just a second to let us know how we did. fantasypros.com/survey. And how we can be even better in 2025. Erickson, what's your number 1 prediction here?
Christian Watson, wide receiver 1 season. He's going to score a touchdown against the New Orleans Saints. We just saw Terry McLaurin. I mean, I think Terry McLaurin could have had 5 touchdowns against the New Orleans Saints. He was open, deep, short, running around, just absolutely destroying that defense in the red zone. And I think Christian Watson kind of fits a similar mold to McLaurin where you have a speedy receiver. I think that he can take advantage of this Saints defense playing at home. And Christian Watson has really been the most consistent receiver for the Packers for the last 7 weeks. He's been the guy for them the last 7 games, leads the Packers in targets, air yards, and receiving yards. And that even includes a game where he had no statistics, where he had a complete donut back in week 12. And I think what's curious about his streak recently is over the span, he has 0 touchdowns, right? So he's seeing all the yardage, he's seeing all the targets, a lot of downfield shots. I believe Chris Collinsworth said on the broadcast on Sunday night that he's averaging 35 yards per catch, just something absolutely ridiculous. So he's ripping off big plays, hasn't found the end zone yet. I think the Saints matchup kind of cures that after we saw what Terry McLaurin was able to do to that defense. I think Christian Watson's in line for a big game. So if you're looking for, hey, flex play, Monday Night Football, who's going to get me to the fantasy football championships? I think Christian Watson could be that guy set up for a big week.
He's wide receiver 48 in early ECR. Welsh, is that too high, too low, or just right for Christian Watson?
Yeah, it's a little low. I love this one. Like, I really struggle with Christian Watson, but I feel like the consistency wants to start picking back up as Jaden Reed kind of coming back down. I wish Dobbs would go away. Dobbs is super annoying. He's the most annoying player out there. He had like 3 targets. He had 4 targets, 2 touchdowns this past week. Like, he just does annoying stuff where I feel like that can take away from Watson. Watson's also good in the red zone as well. But I like this in general because I feel like Love is locking in that connection even more with Watson. McLaurin destroyed last week. And I completely agree that Watson can be in that role. That's not like you would, from a physicality standpoint, you might look at someone like Jaden Reed and be like, oh, Jaden Reed could be that guy. They don't use Jaden Reed like that. They use Christian Watson like that if you can take advantage of the Saints. So I really like this one. From probably a betting perspective, I'll be involved. And I think he's a flex play for sure. 3 wide receiver and a flex. You said 48. I'd probably, I don't know, like right at the mid 40s, maybe even into the high 30s. I think he's right at that high flex, maybe even wide receiver 3 standpoint on the matchup.
Do you like him more than Bills receivers not named Shakir?
Yeah, like going back to our Keon Coleman,
Yeah.
my Keon Coleman one, I would start Watson over Keon Coleman.
I agree.
But because I think there's a little bit more consistency in favor of Watson, and I think if I were, we could play this long touchdown bet game I keep doing, like Christian Watson, Keon Coleman, Brian Thomas, like those are probably three of the best long touchdown bets in the NFL right there. But Watson, I think, will get more volume.
Fantasy Points, actually, while we were having this conversation, tweeted out just an update that Christian Watson, third highest average separation score this season, behind only Brandon Ayuk, who obviously only played 7 games, and Mike Evans. So
the fountain of youth.
Very consistent. All right, Welsh, I don't know that I agree with this one, but give us all your number one.
Well, you're like, ooh, I'm a self-loathing Raven. This is why
I've just watched Lamar against the Steelers too many times.
Lamar Jackson will snap the Steeler curse. I am in. Here are some of his, this is wild numbers. Most of you probably know this. His averages first against the Pittsburgh Steelers. He's 2-5, which is crazy. He is on average 153 passing yards, under a touchdown thrown, over 1 pick thrown per game. He has one time in his career thrown over 250 passing yards against the Steelers, which is crazy. He has, I'm looking at this game log here, 5 of 7 games thrown an interception against the Pittsburgh Steelers. It means nothing. Lamar Jackson, 5 touchdowns last week. He's getting back and going back to the well of his great performances. I'm listening to no sit Lamar Jackson questions this week. I'm saying Lamar Jackson's to play. And if he fails, he fails. I don't know what to tell you. Lamar Jackson is incredible with his feet in the air. My prediction, I'm going 300 plus passing and rushing. I'm going to take the rushing upside here, but he's going to score 3 touchdowns in this game. I really think he's going to throw for 2. He's going to run 1 himself. He's going to break this curse. Watt is kind of banged up. That defense for the Steelers in general is banged up. They also cannot really move the ball. What's the thing that you were able to do against the Baltimore Ravens? Throw the ball. What can the Steelers not do right now? Throw the ball. If now Pickens is active, that activates and opens that up a little bit more. If this becomes a competitive game, great, even better for Lamar Jackson. But if you take away the passing game from the Pittsburgh Steelers, they're going to struggle. Najee Harris is washed. The Ravens are going to have a higher time of possession. That works very, very well for Lamar Jackson. He wants to destroy this team. I like Mark Andrews. I like Zay Flowers. Derrick Henry, great. Derrick Henry's been used quite a bit less, and Justice Hill has been doing a good job receiving out of the backfield. It's a 3-touchdown Lamar Jackson game. No questions about should you start him, and we break this ridiculous curse.
I don't know that I agree.
Of course you don't, because you're a Ravens fan. You're like, woe is me, Ravens.
He looks
nevermore
uncomfortable against Mike Tomlin defenses. Like he just looks. There are 2 teams that when the Ravens play them, Lamar Jackson looks like a different player. It's the Chiefs and it's the Steelers, and he's been bad. I will say, last year he had he only faced them once because they sat him in week 18. He had poor numbers. There were like 8 drops in that game. Like Lamar actually played really well.
I remember that game.
Yes, there were like Bateman dropped one in the end zone. Zay Flowers dropped one wide open. Like there was like truly like 7, I think was the official number of drops in that game. It was insane. I've never seen anything like it. And he should have had 300 passing yards and a win. So I will give him some credit for that Lamar did play very well in that game, which was the second most recent time that he's faced them. But by and large, he just has looked really uncomfortable against.
Warren, let me ask you something then.
Team.
Are you sitting Lamar for other vital?
No. I'm absolutely not.
But you're so worried that he's going to struggle. Then should you open up your advice that Lamar Jackson is a potential viable sit in fantasy for those mid-tier quarterbacks, Baker Mayfield maybe?
I would need it would need to be a scenario where I have another elite, like Josh Allen, Jalen Hurts, Joe Burrow, Jaden Daniels. Like I need somebody who's ECR like top 6 to go away from Lamar. I'm not in.
So you would sit Lamar for Jaden Daniels?
I actually probably wouldn't because the Eagles did so well against him last time. So I wouldn't sit Lamar for anybody probably other than Allen, Hurts, or Burrow, which you very likely don't have those guys. So I'm not here saying sit Lamar. The upside is too obviously insane with him. But when you talk about 300 total yards and 3 touchdowns, that's where I just think it is too optimistic. I mean, I would love for you to be right, obviously, but
of course you would.
I don't expect that. What do you think, Erickson? What do you make of Lamar in this matchup?
Look, man, if he really deserves to be MVP or right up there with Josh Allen, then you got to show out against the good teams, right?
I can't do the MVP conversation. I can't.
Regardless, look, he's one of the best players in the NFL. He's one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL, and this is when you need to rise to the occasion. And I'm gonna have faith in the guys that have got me this far. Yeah, it's a tough matchup, but you know who overcomes tough matchups? The best players on planet Earth, and that's MVPs, Lamar Jackson. So, look, it's the second time around. Can they make adjustments on the Steelers defense? Is TJ Watt 100%? Again, with TJ Watt, even if he plays, like TJ Watt has not been the same player he's been in years past in terms of like, if you just look at his pressure rate numbers, like it's not the same. Like, again, like he's a game wrecker when it comes to stripping the ball, doing things, causing chaos, creating turnovers. But the Ravens know that. And I think that they might be better prepared this time around to take on the Steelers. I mean, again, this offense has been cooking all year long. Is Bateman going to come with, I mean, I think having Bateman as a reliable target for seemingly like the first time in his NFL career, I think this makes another element to this game. I mean, Zay Flowers has been quiet for weeks. What if he pops off here? I think this is the first time we've seen enough weapons where I think Lamar can actually deliver a better performance against the Pittsburgh Steelers, because who are the Steelers going to stop, right? Like, okay, stop Lamar. Well, what about Derrick Henry? What about some of these receivers? What about the tight ends? Like, health-wise, I mean, the Ravens are in a pretty good spot here, I think, offensively. So I'm never going to bet against Lamar Jackson. I don't think that's smart to do. And I get that the matchup is tough against the Steelers, but this is one of the best players rise to the occasion. So, yeah, I mean, I'm not going to be sitting in many spots. So
he has started 4 games against the Steelers since the start of the 2020 season. His completion percentages in those games, 46, 62, 57, and 48. 2 of the 4 he's under 50, and another one he's under 60.
Throw a pick in every single one as well. It's going to change this game. It's going to change.
Again, it just tends to look different. I mean, obviously, Lamar, this is the best version of Lamar we've ever seen, like this season, obviously, regardless of whether or not he wins MVP. Like, clearly he's not the favorite right now, but like he's playing the best we've ever seen. And this is a guy who has won 2 MVPs. So maybe that is enough.
If he breaks the Steeler curse and does what I am talking about, do you think the odds change? Because it's like minus 900 to Josh Allen right now. It's so crazy in favor. Do you think the odds become closer?
No. Josh Allen has to lose to the Patriots.
I already think that the gap is insane. Like I am fine with Allen being the favorite. I'm not coming out here and saying Lamar deserves to be the heavy favorite to win MVP. Like Josh Allen has earned the right to be the favorite, but the fact that he's minus 900 and Lamar is like plus 550, like that gap is wild to me, honestly, because Lamar is having an objectively better statistical season. Like the case for Allen is the wins and the narrative that he hasn't won yet, which is fine. Again, I'm not saying that he shouldn't be the favorite, but that gap is wild considering Lamar is currently on pace to have like arguably the greatest quarterback season ever. When you look at like passing touchdowns and interceptions, passing yards plus rushing yards, like he is having an unbelievable statistical season. So like I just think it should be closer, even if Allen is like probably rightly the favorite currently. It's kind of where I stand on it. I said I didn't want to talk about MVP. All right. I do want to remind everybody, if you're thinking about MVP odds or betting on anything else, we are doing a weekly NFL betting live stream featuring Joey P and Andrew Erickson on our Betting Pros YouTube channel. You can come and ask all your NFL betting questions. They'll be with you every Wednesday at 3 p.m. Eastern. For those listening on the podcast, just go to youtube.com/bettingpros, subscribe, and click the bell to be notified of all of our weekly live streams. All right. Hopefully we did better on these predictions than we did last week. For Welsh and Erickson, I'm Ryan Wormeli. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Best of luck here in Week 16. We'll see you next time.